Get out. You're filth. One harsh command sparked a storm. At First Capital Bank, a hidden genius, disguised as a white cleaner, walked into a trap of injustice. Michael Harper, a white bank chairman, joined forces with Emily Carter, a black janitor, to uncover a scandal so deep it could collapse the system. Who will fall? Who will rise? Can their love rewrite a legacy of lies? Or will it burn the bank to the ground? Stay until the end. The twist will redefine what redemption truly means. Welcome to Unveiled Wealth, where hidden truths are unveiled, one silent layer at a time. Let's begin. Emily Carter, a black janitor, knelt on the cold marble floor of First Capital Bank, her hands trembling as she picked up scattered papers. Richard Evans, the branch manager, loomed over her, his voice sharp as a blade. "Clean this, you're a disgrace," he barked, tossing the stack at her face. The papers fluttered down, numbers glaring secrets she couldn't unsee. Her hidden genius, a mind that danced with numbers, meant nothing here. She scribbled a few digits on her palm, her breath quickening, knowing the risk. Richard turned to Michael Harper, the quiet white cleaner nearby, his mop steady in his hands. "And you stop staring, or you're next," he sneered, his polished shoes kicking a stray paper across the floor. Michael gripped the mop, his knuckles whitening, eyes burning with a fire he kept buried. Emily glanced at him, suspicion flickering. Why did he care so much? A customer nearby sneered. "Look at her, pathetic." Richard smirked, his voice cutting. "Hurry up or I'll make sure you never work again." Another employee whispered to a coworker. "She's trouble, always sneaking around." Emily's hands shook harder. She clutched the papers, her chest tightening with shame. Michael stepped closer, his shadow falling over her. But he said nothing, his presence a quiet weight. A coworker laughed. "She'll never be more than this." Emily's eyes welled up. She wiped them quickly, her fingers tightening on the paper's numbers that could unravel the bank's lies. She tucked them into her apron, her mind racing, hoping no one saw. Richard's eyes narrowed. He stepped closer, his voice low. "What's that in your hand?" Emily froze, her breath catching, her mind racing with fear. She bent lower, pretending to gather more papers, her movements stiff, her fear mounting. Every insult, every sneer, every dismissal, she wouldn't let them break her, not yet. The lobby buzzed with morning activity, clients in crisp suits brushing past Emily as if she were invisible. A young teller, Clara, glanced at her with pity, but quickly looked away, afraid to be seen, showing kindness. "Don't get involved," Clara's coworker hissed, pulling her back to the counter. Emily's heart sank. She was alone, or so she thought. Michael moved to a nearby pillar, wiping it down, his eyes scanning the room. He noted every detail, the way Richard's smirk widened when a client handed him a thick envelope, the way the head teller, Marcus, quickly shuffled papers when a supervisor walked by. Michael's grip on the mop tightened, his jaw clenching. He'd seen this before, years ago, when his father had been a janitor here, betrayed by the same corrupt system. Emily stood, her knees aching, and moved to a trash bin, emptying it with unsteady hands. A client dropped a coffee cup on the floor, not bothering to pick it up, and snapped. "Clean that up, girl." Emily's face burned, but she complied, her fingers brushing the sticky mess. Michael watched, his anger simmering. He'd chosen this disguise for a reason, to see the bank's underbelly up close, to feel the weight of every injustice his father had endured. He stepped closer to Emily, pretending to adjust his bucket, his voice a low whisper. "Keep going. You're stronger than they know." Emily's eyes flicked to him, startled. But his words lit a spark in her. She wasn't as alone as she thought. Richard returned, his voice booming across the lobby. "You're too slow. Carter, move it, or I'll have you thrown out." He grabbed a stack of folders from a teller's desk, tossing them at Emily's feet, the papers scattering like leaves. "Pick those up, too. I don't have all day." The tellers averted their eyes, their silence deafening, their fear of Richard palpable. Emily knelt again, her hands shaking, but her resolve hardening. She'd survive this. Somehow. Michael moved to a corner, his eyes darting to a security camera above. He'd noticed it earlier, its lens angled to miss the northeast corner, where whispers of cooked books had echoed. He'd used that blind spot, he decided, his plan taking shape with every cruel word Richard spat. Emily glanced at him again. Her suspicion growing, there was something about this white cleaner, something she couldn't place, but his presence gave her a flicker of hope amidst the storm of disdain. Emily's breath caught, Richard's question burning in her ears. "What's that in your hand?" he demanded again, stepping closer, his voice sharp as a blade. She froze. Her hand shook, clutching the crumpled paper tighter, numbers scribbled. A dangerous clue to the bank's corruption. She shoved it deeper into her apron, her mind racing, and forced herself to gather the remaining papers. Her movements quick but unsteady. Richard smirked, his eyes narrowing. "Hiding something. Are you?" He grabbed a bucket of dirty water, poured it over the floor she just cleaned, the murky liquid spreading like a stain. "Do it again faster." Emily knelt, wiped the mess with a rag, her fingers unsteady with each stroke, her shame deepening. A client laughed nearby. "She's worthless." Michael, the white cleaner, mopped closer, his grip on the handle firm, jaw clenched, silent as stone. His eyes locked on Richard, tension simmering beneath the surface. Another employee spread a rumor, her voice low but cutting. "Emily stole cash, I saw her." Emily overheard, her eyes widening. She stumbled back, clutching her apron, her fear growing. Richard cornered Michael, his tone icy. "Help her, and you're done." Michael stared, his hands tightening, but he said nothing, his gaze burning with hidden intent. Emily moved to a trash bin, emptying it with shaky hands, her thoughts spinning. What if Richard found the paper? A coworker shoved past her, muttering, "Stay out of my way, thief." Emily flinched, her eyes darting. Searching for an escape, none came. Michael swept nearby, his knuckles whitening. He glanced at her, his eyes narrowed, his silence a heavy weight. A manager joined in, his voice dripping with disdain. "She'll never amount to anything." Emily's hand shook harder. She grabbed a broom, moved to a counter, wiped it down, her movements stiff, her resolve fraying. Richard smirked again, his voice cutting through the lobby. "You're both nothing, remember that." Emily glanced at Michael, her fingers still clutching the hidden paper, her only hope, her determination growing amidst her fear. Clients whispered, "She doesn't belong here." Emily bent lower, moved to a window, wiped it down, her hands burning, her mind racing with the weight of her secret. Richard tossed a coin at her, his voice mocking. "Pick it up, beggar." Emily reached, her fingers trembling. The coin slipped. She grabbed it, her nails digging into her palm, her chest tightening with humiliation. A security guard sneered, "She's a joke." Emily heard, her breath hitching. She stood, adjusted her apron, her movements deliberate, her fear mounting. Michael moved closer, his shadow looming, but he stayed silent, watching her struggle, his own anger building. A client pointed, "Why is she even here?" Emily shifted to a cabinet, dusted it, her arms shaking, her strength fading. Geraldine C. Wallace, the senior risk officer, stormed in, her stilettos clicking sharply. She glared at Emily, her voice cold. "You're still here. I told you to get lost after cleaning." She turned to a teller, her tone harsh. "You push those fake loans on Mrs. Jenkins. She's 90, she won't notice." The teller hesitated, her voice trembling. "But that's not right." Geraldine's eyes flashed. "Do it, or you're fired." Emily overheard, her stomach dropping. She moved to a chair, wiped it down, her movements quick, her fear deepening. Geraldine noticed her, her voice cutting. "What are you looking at? Cleaner mind your place or you'll regret it." Emily noticed a small camera hidden in the corner, its lens pointed at Geraldine's desk. She realized it might have recorded the conversation, a potential lifeline if she could access it. Richard walked by, kicked her bucket, water spilling across the floor. "Oops, clean that too." Emily froze, her eyes stinging. She wiped the spill, her hands trembling. She didn't look up, her shame deepening. Another employee muttered, "She's a thief. I bet she's hiding something." Emily heard, her chest tightening. She moved to a desk, dusted it, her movements quick, her panic rising. Michael swept closer, his steps deliberate. He bent to pick up a stray paper, his fingers brushing the floor, his eyes darting to Richard's office. As simmering, Michael slipped a tiny listening device under Richard's desk. His movements swift, he'd been gathering evidence for weeks. And this would be the key to exposing Richard's private deals. A coworker laughed. Look at them two nobodies, they'll never be anything. Emily's eyes darted to Michael, her hands shaking. She adjusted her apron, hiding the paper better, her suspicion colliding with fear. Who was this man? The rumor spread further. Another employee whispered, she's trouble, she's always sneaking around, we should report her. Emily heard, her shoulders slumping. She moved to a corner, adjusted her supplies, her hands unsteady, her resolve tested. A client sneered. She's pathetic, look at her, she doesn't belong. Emily shifted to a window, wiped it down, her movements stiff, her strength fading. Richard returned, dropped a pen on the floor, his voice sharp. Pick it up now, don't make me wait. Emily reached, her fingers trembling. She grabbed the pen, her nails scratching the floor. She handed it back, her shame deepening. Richard snatched it, smirked wider. You're nothing, both of you don't forget it. Every lie, every lie, every lie. Geraldine approached Richard, her voice low. We'll pin the Jenkins loan on Carter. She's the perfect scapegoat. Emily overheard, her heart sinking. She was being framed, but now she had a reason to fight harder. Emily's eyes darted to Michael, her hands shaking. She clutched the paper tighter, her breath catching, her fear overwhelming her. Michael's grip on the mop tightened, his knuckles turning white. He stepped closer to Emily, his shadow covering her. But he stayed silent, his anger simmering beneath the surface. Emily, a black janitor, stood frozen, Richard's threat echoing. I'm watching you. Her fingers clutched the hidden paper. Sweaty, the numbers on it a dangerous clue to the bank's corruption, her only chance at freedom. Richard's laughter faded down the hall, but Emily's fear clawed at her chest, her breath uneven. She glanced at Michael, his shadow over her, his silence heavier than ever. Michael, the white cleaner, bent down, picked up a stray paper, his fingers brushing hers, lingering, his eyes meeting hers, a flicker of something unspoken. He slipped the paper into his pocket, his movements deliberate, his jaw tight. Emily's eyes widened. Did he know her secret? She stepped back, her hand trembling, and moved to a corner, pretending to adjust her cleaning supplies. Her mind racing, what was he hiding? Michael straightened, swept the floor, his steps measured, his grip on the mop firm. He glanced at the security camera above, his eyes narrowing, then turned away, his face unreadable. Emily watched him, her suspicion growing. Why did he keep watching her? She tucked the paper deeper into her apron, her fingers unsteady, her resolve hardening. She couldn't let Richard find it. A coworker walked by, muttering under their breath. She's up to something, I can tell. Emily heard, her stomach dropping. She grabbed a rag, wiped down a nearby counter, her movements quick, her fear mounting. Michael moved to the corner, bent down again. Pulling a small recorder from his pocket, he pressed a button, his eyes darting to Richard's office down the hall. Emily caught the glint of the device, her breath catching. What was he doing? She shifted to a trash bin, emptying it, her hands unsteady, her mind spinning. Was he helping her or setting her up? Michael pocketed the recorder, moved closer to her, his steps silent, his presence a quiet storm. Emily's eyes darted to him, her hands shaking. She adjusted her apron, hiding the paper better, her suspicion colliding with fear. Who was this man? She thought it was a mistake until she saw the white cleaner glance her way, his eyes sharp, knowing. Her suspicion deepened. She stepped toward a cabinet, dusted it, her movements deliberate, her mind racing. What if he was the key to her escape? Another employee passed, whispering to a colleague. She's always sneaking around. I don't trust her. Emily heard, her chest tightening. She picked up a broom, moved to a window, wiped it down, her movements stiff, her thoughts racing. Michael walked past her, his arm brushing hers. He glanced at her, his eyes intense, but he said nothing, his silence deafening. A client muttered nearby, she's trouble, look at her. Emily moved to a desk, adjusted a stack of papers, her eyes darting. She'd make her stand. But with whom? Emily, a black janitor, paused at the desk, her rag slowing, suspicion about Michael swirling. Who was he? Memories crashed in. At 12, Emily sat in a cramped room, the TV flickering, Janet Yellen's voice sharp on the screen. She scribbled numbers on scrap paper, pencil scratching. Eyes bright numbers were her escape. She flipped through stolen library books, fingers tracing formulas. Her breath quick, she dreamed beyond the slums. She hid under her bed, counting coins from her mother's jar, calculating interest in her head. Smiling, she knew she was different. She'd sneak to the library, wait for closing, slip in, grab finance books, read under a street lamp. Pages worn, her mind raced. She'd sit by the river, pencil in hand, solving equations on napkins. Her focus unbreakable, she wanted more. Years later, Emily stood outside First Capital Bank, hands wringing. Resolve firm, she'd taken the cleaning job to learn. She hid in a closet, ear to the door. Hearing executives discuss fake loans, her pencil flew. Copying every word, her heart steady. She stole a report, tucked it under her shirt, slipped out, steps silent, mind sharp. Another memory, Emily caught a manager fudging numbers. Her eyes narrowed. She wrote it down, hid it in her shoe, determination fierce. She sneaked into a meeting room after hours, flipped through files, fingers steady, found a hidden ledger, her breath caught. She pocketed it, slipped away. She overheard a client bribe an executive, pen scratching faster, ducked behind a desk, stayed still, barely breathing. She'd memorized loan codes, whispered them to herself at night, her fingers tapping, she was ready to fight. Another night, Emily followed a manager to the vault, saw him stash cash. Her eyes widened. She turned away, steps quick, she knew too much. She'd once trailed an executive to a back alley, watched him hand off a briefcase, her pen scratched notes. She hid behind a dumpster, breath held. Michael's past flashed, he stood at his father's grave. A white janitor betrayed by this bank, fists clenched, vowing revenge. He'd built an empire in secret, bought First Capital to expose its lies. He tightened his grip on the mop, eyes sharp, plan unfolding. He remembered his first deal, shaking hands in a dimly lit room, voice firm, he'd sworn to destroy the bank. He recalled a late night, signing papers to buy First Capital, pen steady, resolve iron. He'd waited years for this. Another memory, Michael met a whistleblower, took a hidden file. His eyes scanned it, jaw tight, he knew the bank's secrets. He'd watched his father collapse after being framed, his voice breaking, promising he'd make them pay. He'd once followed a corrupt executive, saw him burn documents, his fists clenched. He turned away. Plotting this was his fight. Back in the present, Emily's rags stopped, eyes narrowed. Those numbers matched her paper now. Michael, the white cleaner, turned, caught her gaze, a shared understanding flickered. A silent pact formed. She adjusted her apron, moved to a trash bin, emptied it, hands steady, resolve hardening. Michael swept closer, picked up a dropped pen, slipped it to her, fingers brushing hers a signal. Emily nodded, tucked the pen away. Mind racing, they were in this together. She grabbed a rag, wiped a counter. Movements deliberate. Focus clear, she'd fight with him, no matter the cost. Michael adjusted his cap, glanced at Richard's office. Fingers twitching, he was ready to move. Emily, a black janitor, dusted the counter, her focus sharp. The silent pact with Michael fueling her, they'd fight together. She slipped the crumpled paper into her shoe, her fingers quick, her resolve iron, no one could find it now. Footsteps echoed, Richard stormed back, his eyes blazing. You, Carter, get over here. Emily turned, her breath catching. She walked to him, steps stiff, her hands clenched. Richard grabbed her arm, yanked her to the center of the bank, his voice loud. You think you can sneak around my bank? He pulled a $500 bill from his pocket, held it up, smirked. Found this in the trash you're doing, thief. Emily's eyes widened. She shook her head, her voice low. I didn't, I swear. Clients gasped, whispered, pointed their voices a storm of judgment. Richard slapped the bill on her chest. It fell, he sneered. Pick it up now. Emily knelt, grabbed the bill, her fingers unsteady. She stood, her face burning with shame. Michael, the white cleaner, watched from the corner, his grip on the mop tightening, his jaw clenching. He stepped forward, ready to act, but stopped, his eyes darting to the security camera. The air grew colder, the hum of the ATM, a heartbeat in the dark, counting down to chaos. He pulled the recorder from his pocket, pressed record, his movements swift, his plan in motion. He slipped a small device, a tracker, into the ATM's port, his fingers quick, ensuring every move Richard made would be traced. Emily handed the bill back. Richard snatched it, shoved her back. You're finished. A coworker snickered. Told you she's a thief. Emily backed away, her eyes stinging. She turned to Michael. Her gaze pleading, he nodded. A silent promise. She moved to a chair, adjusted it, her hands steady, her determination growing she wouldn't break. Not now. Emily, a black janitor, backed away from Richard. His accusation. You're finished slicing through her, her eyes stinging with shame. She turned to Michael, his nod a lifeline. Her trust in him deepening, he'd been her silent shield through every insult, every cruel word. Richard smirked, tossed the bill to the floor again. Pick it up, thief. Emily knelt, her fingers trembling. She grabbed it, her gaze locking with Michael's. A warmth flickered in her chest, his steady eyes giving her strength. She'd always felt safe near him, his quiet presence a comfort she couldn't explain, even in her darkest moments. Michael, a white cleaner, stepped closer, his voice low, breaking his silence for the first time. Enough. Richard spun around, eyes narrowing. What did you say? Michael dropped the mop. His shoulders squared, he reached into his pocket, pulled out the recorder, and pressed play. Richard's voice echoed, move the funds, no one will know. Clients gasped, their whispers a storm, the bank's corruption laid bare. Richard's face paled. He lunged for the recorder, but Michael stepped back, his voice firm. It's over. He tore off his janitor's uniform, revealing a tailored suit underneath, his presence commanding. I'm Michael Harper, chairman of First Capital. I bought this branch to expose you. The crowd froze. Richard stumbled back, his voice shaking. You're... Michael turned to Emily, his eyes soft. He took her hand, his touch gentle, a quiet confession of the feelings he'd held since their first shared glance. Emily saw what you couldn't, she found the truth. Emily's eyes widened. Her hand tightened in his, a rush of warmth spreading. She'd trusted him, and he'd trusted her. Michael faced the crowd, his voice steady. Richard faked loans worth millions and framed her for it. But he wasn't done. He pulled out his phone, opened an app linked to the tracker he'd planted in the ATM. A digital trail of Richard's transactions glowed on the screen, and he transferred those millions offshore, hiding them in a Cayman account. Clients gasped louder, their whispers turning to shouts. He stole from us. Richard's face turned gray, his hands shaking. He stammered. That's not true. Michael's voice cut through, unwavering. It's all here, every transfer, every lie. He swiped again, revealing a second layer of evidence, a contract Richard had forged with a major client, siphoning funds through fake investments. And here's the proof of your deal with Sterling Corp. $10 million vanished. The crowd erupted, their voices a storm. He betrayed us. Lock him up. Security guards moved in, grabbed Richard, dragged him away, his protest fading. No, you can't do this. Emily stepped forward, pulling a USB from her apron, the footage from the hidden camera she'd found in part 2 showing Richard and Geraldine plotting to frame her. This proves I'm innocent and they're guilty, she declared, her voice steady, her resolve unshaken. Clients whispered. Awestruck, the cleaners they'd mocked now stood tall. Every client, every tear, every stolen home. Michael turned to Emily, his voice low, meant only for her. You were never nothing, not to me. Emily's tears fell. She squeezed his hand, her heart full. Their shared struggle had forged something deeper, something unspoken but real. She remembered their moments, his quiet glances, the way he'd stayed close, his silent support. It had always been there. Michael led her to the center, his grip firm, his eyes locked on hers, a promise in his gaze. The crowd parted, their whispers growing. They did this together. Emily stood taller, her shame melting, replaced by a quiet strength. Michael's belief in her had changed everything. She looked out at the crowd, her voice steady for the first time. We'll rebuild this bank for all of you. The crowd erupted in cheers, their voices echoing through the bank. Justice had prevailed. X live streams exploded. Bank justice trending clients shared their stories, their voices a storm of justice. A reporter filmed, her voice live on X. The cleaners brought down the bank, justice is served. Clients posted videos. Their gratitude clear, they saved us. A young client, tears streaming, held up her phone. My family's home. It's ours again. Another shouted, they're heroes. A senior teller who'd sneered at Emily stepped forward, her voice trembling. Was wrong. Let me help. Emily nodded, her eyes firm. Show me start with the client files. The teller turned away. Her shame a lesson she'd learn, or she'd leave. Emily watched, her hand still in Michael's. Her strength growing, she'd been invisible. But now she stood at the center. A client approached, his voice shaking with gratitude. You gave me back my home, thank you. Emily nodded, her eyes misty. She'd helped change lives. Michael pulled out a second USB. This one from his own surveillance. He handed it to a reporter in the crowd. This has every transaction, every email. Take it to the press. Let the world know. The reporter's eyes widened. Her camera flashing, the bank's corruption would be exposed on a global scale. The crowd's cheers grew louder, their voices echoing through the streets. A new era had begun, built on their courage, their shared fight, their unspoken connection. The bank buzzed, but Emily felt the weight of every life they'd rebuild. A senior executive, Geraldine, tried to slip out the back door, but Emily spotted her, her voice ringing out. Not so fast, Geraldine. You're next. The crowd turned, their shouts pinning Geraldine in place. She'd been caught on the camera footage. Her role in the Jenkins loan scam now undeniable. Security grabbed her. Her protests echoing. Richard's justice was closing in. Michael turned to the crowd, his voice firm. We'll audit every transaction, every deal. Nothing will be hidden again. Emily nodded, her resolve hardening. She'd been a cleaner, but now she was a leader. She stepped forward, her voice clear. This bank will be a place of trust for everyone. The crowd cheered, their applause a wave of hope. A new chapter had begun. Michael reached into his pocket, pulling out a small handkerchief Emily had dropped weeks ago. He'd kept it, a quiet token of his care for her, his eyes softening as he handed it to her. Emily's breath caught, her fingers brushing his as she took it, a smile breaking through her tears. They'd found each other in the storm. Emily, a black janitor turned leader, stood beside Michael, the white cleaner who'd unveiled his true power as chairman, their hands clasped. The bank buzzing with a new energy. The truth had set them free. Michael turned to her, his eyes warm. He lifted her hand, pressed it to his lips, a quiet vow of the love that had grown through their shared fight. Emily's heart swelled, her smile soft. She'd never felt so seen, so valued, so whole. He faced the crowd, his voice firm. Emily will lead our new financial oversight team. No more lies. Clients clapped, their nods a wave of approval. The bank's future was in her hands. Emily's eyes widened. She squeezed Michael's hand, her gratitude clear. He'd given her a voice, a purpose, a chance to shine. The crowd cheered, their applause echoing. A new era had truly begun. Emily rested her head on his chest, his heartbeat steady against her. She'd found her place, her partner, her home. The crowd outside roared louder, their chants a tidal wave. Justice had prevailed. A client handed Emily a report, his voice earnest. We're ready to rebuild, let us. Emily took it, her grip steady. She was ready. A former co-worker who'd mocked her stepped forward, head low. I'm sorry, Emily. Emily nodded, her voice steady. Prove it, help us rebuild. The co-worker turned away, shame in her eyes. Redemption was a choice, and she'd have to earn it. Michael pulled Emily aside, his voice low. I meant what I said. You're everything to me. Emily's breath caught. She touched his cheek, her fingers gentle. Their bond had deepened through every trial, every shared moment of pain and triumph. He knelt, pulled a ring from his pocket, his eyes locked on hers. Marry me, Emily. The crowd gasped. Emily's tears fell. She nodded, her voice a whisper. Yes. Michael slipped the ring on her finger, stood, pulled her into his arms, their love sealed in the heart of the bank they'd saved. A senior executive approached, his voice shaky. We'll support your vision fully. Michael nodded, his arm around Emily. They were a united front. Another employee who'd sneered at Emily dropped her gaze, turned away. The past was gone, the future theirs. Emily looked around. The bank's walls no longer a cage, they were a canvas for change. She squeezed Michael's hand, her resolve firm. They'd rewrite the bank's story together, starting now. A client approached, shook Emily's hand, his voice earnest. You've given us hope, thank you. Emily smiled, her fingers tightening in Michael's. Their legacy was real. The crowd cheered, but Emily felt the weight of every life they'd rebuild. Months later, Emily, the black janitor turned leader, led her first oversight meeting at First Capital Bank. Her nameplate gleaming financial oversight lead. She stood at the head of the table, her voice steady, pointing at a chart. We'll audit every transaction, no exceptions. Staff nodded. Their respect clear, she transformed the bank's core. Michael, the white cleaner who'd revealed his role as chairman, watched from the doorway. His smile proud he'd fallen deeper for her every day. Her strength a light in his life. They walked out together, his arm around her. Her ring glinting, their wedding had been a quiet affair. But their love spoke volumes. Outside, a new sign read, First Capital, a bank for all. Clients lined up, their trust restored, the bank's dark past was gone. Emily and Michael visited a community center. Funded by the bank's restitution, children ran up, thanking them, their smiles bright. Emily knelt, handed a girl a book on finance, her voice soft. You can be anything. Michael squeezed her shoulder. His touch warm, they'd built this together. Back at the bank, a plaque honored their fight for truth and justice. Emily traced the words, her eyes misty, they'd done it. Michael pulled her close, his voice low. We changed it all for us. For them, Emily nodded, her smile radiant, their love. Their fight had rewritten history. A former client approached, shook Emily's hand, his voice earnest. You gave us a future, thank you. Emily smiled, her fingers tightening in Michael's. Their legacy was real. They walked through the bank, staff nodding in respect, the air was lighter. The lies gone. Tellers like Jay, once fearful, now led ethics workshops, their voices steady, their confidence a quiet empowerment. Emily paused at a window, looked out at the city, her eyes bright. This was their new beginning. Michael stood beside her, his hand on her back, his voice soft. I'd do it all again for you. Emily turned, her eyes meeting his, her smile warm, their bond was unbreakable, their love a quiet force. A new employee approached, handed Emily a report, her voice eager. We're ready to help, lead us. Emily took the report, her grip steady, she was ready. The bank would never be the same, and neither would she. Malik's shadow lingered not in the halls, but in every honest choice they'd make. Stay until the end. The twist will redefine what redemption truly means. If you witnessed injustice like this, what would you do? Comment below. Subscribe to Unveiled Wealth, where kindness sparks redemption and silence breaks power. Michael and Emily, a black janitor and a white cleaner, stood together, their hands clasped, a beacon of hope in a bank reborn. Michael had walked these halls as a cleaner, a silent witness to a system built on lies. He was erased once, a genius who dared to speak the truth, but they laughed him out of their boardroom. They thought he'd stay down. They thought he'd break. They thought wrong. He returned not with a title, but with a plan. Every swipe of his mop uncovered a secret. Every whisper he caught built a case. Every lie he recorded became a weapon. And when the system crumbled, it wasn't with a shout, but with a single recorder, a single reveal, a single man who refused to stay buried. Michael didn't just expose injustice, he shattered it. He didn't just fight for himself, he fought for Emily, for the clients, for every voice silenced by greed. His silence broke their power, and his truth sparked a redemption that echoed far beyond the bank's walls. What would you do if you held the key to justice? Would you walk away, or would you fight? Imagine standing in Michael's shoes, your hands gripping the evidence, your heart steady with the weight of every wrong you've seen. Would you let the lies win, or would you make them pay? Michael chose to fight. He chose to stand. He chose to be the voice for those who'd been silenced. And in doing so, he gave empowerment to every unseen hero, every quiet warrior, every person who'd ever been told they didn't matter. His mop wasn't just a tool, it was a symbol of resilience, of defiance, of a man who turned their arrogance into ashes. Now it's your turn to take a stand. If you witnessed an injustice like this, what would you do? Would you speak up? Like Michael, would you gather the evidence, piece by piece, until the truth could no longer be ignored? Share your thoughts below. We're listening. Your voice matters. Your story matters. Join us now, subscribe to Unveiled Wealth today, and dive into stories where the silence rise. where the overlooked triumph, where kindness sparks a revolution. Don't miss out on tales that cut through the noise. Tales where the truth doesn't just whisper, it roars. Hit that subscribe button, become part of our community, and let's break the silence together. Unveiled Wealth isn't just a channel, it's a call to action. Will you answer? Because the next story might be yours, waiting to roar.